What's up, everybody? Josh Armijo here. I hope everybody's doing good and well and stuff. I got an album review to do for you, and I'm going to be talking to you about the new album from the band Skinless, entitled Only the Ruthless Remain. This is released on Relapse Records. Now, if you're not too familiar with this band, they are based out of New York and Colorado, and the best way to describe the sound of this band would be a very brutal, technical, and brooding style of death metal. Yeah. This is a band that is pretty much a household name when it comes to thinking of death metal from New York, or brutal death metal, or any sort of style of that nature. This band has been around for almost 20 plus years, and with having such a notable name, you would get some very notable music. And I would say this band has been putting out music that pretty much feels like what you would expect from the classic brutal death metal style. I think it's very well evidented in this band's early 90s works. You hear that in the first two albums that this band ever put out, Progression Towards Evil and Foreshadowing Our Demise. Just incredibly wicked stuff, brutal lyrics, great sense of humor, awesome attitude. I mean, songs like Pool of Stool, Crispy Kids, Tampon Lollipops. I mean, this band had just a really wicked, twisted sense of humor in their early material. But then, as time went on, this band began to somewhat change their soundscape and style just a little bit, while still maintaining the Skinless sort of attitude and mentality. You heard that on their 2003 album, From Sacrifice to Survival, which I thought was some decent stuff, to say the least. But then in 2006, we got Trample the Weak, Hurdle the Dead. That was just a monumental beating, to say the least. Incredible vocals, great delivery. That was just a very awesome representation of the newer sort of Skinless sound. But there's been a lot of changes and things going on ever since that the last record was released. Of course, we all know now that Jason, the guy who sung on the last Skinless record, is now the singer for Origin. And over the last couple of years, this band has been changing and toiling their stuff around. They even brought their old singer Sherwood Weber back to, I guess, do shows, and then in 2011 is when they decided to just stop right then and there. Call it a day, call it quits. But the rejuvenation bug seemed to bite this band, and as of lately, this band has been playing a lot of fests, a lot of selected shows, and in the slow process of them playing shows, they've found the rejuvenation to make music. And now that they have their old singer back and a lineup that pretty much has people involved with a lot of the older Skinless material and albums and releases past, we have a brand new Skinless album almost 8-9 years later. And that album being Only the Ruthless Remain. It's 7 tracks, and it clocks in at around 35 minutes in length, and honestly, after giving this album many listens, I do feel a slight bit conflicted here. This does feel like a Skinless record, to say the least, in its presentation, in its attitude, and its just great content. But this feels like an entirely new band. The Skinless of old and the Skinless that was new back in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, gone. We have a brand new, revamped, revitalized sound. It almost feels as though we have a more modern and contemporary sort of representation of what Skinless sound like now. And I can easily assure you that this is going to get a lot of fans of this band talking, whether or not you like this album or not, new fan or old fan, it's going to get a lot of people talking, and I've seen a lot of people divided about this album. But anyway, let's get right on into the nitty-gritty of the music. It's clearly plain and obvious these guys can still play their music very well. They know how to deliver great music very well, and it's very well evidented in the 7 tracks that are on here. 7 very well-timed and lengthy tracks. Nothing feels too long or too short here. The guitar work on here definitely feels very smooth. There's a lot of emphasis on groove being represented here throughout the 7 tracks on here, notably on songs like Serpenticide, Skinless and The Beast Smells Blood. Just some really groove-laden riffs, very good tone, very meaty sound to it. Definitely a lot of good emphasis on riffs being done here. The solos definitely sound really well here. There's a little small instance of technicality being represented here. Definitely a lot more modern sounding than any Skinless release that's ever been put out before. But the riffs sound really good here. I love the way that they sound. The bass definitely sounds a bit on the technical side too. I definitely appreciate what's being represented here with the bass. Definitely well heard, very well mixed and produced. Drum-wise, I definitely think this drum performance definitely feels, once again, going back to the terms modern and contemporary, it definitely feels that way on this album. Not as savage as previous Skinless albums past, I would say, but I definitely think the drums on here sound very, very good. I love the blast beats. I love the double bass. I love the fills. This is definitely a good drum performance, but it definitely feels like something new and fresh. And when it comes to the vocals, this is definitely the most savage sounding, I would say, I've ever heard Sherwood sound. Of course, he has a very distinctive, recognizable voice, but it seems as if over time his vocals have become a lot more lower. It's pretty much a lower register sort of vocal performance here, but it still feels very depraved like Skinless albums of the past. Really good vocal delivery, very guttural. Definitely you can understand what he's saying, his delivery. It definitely does feel like a Skinless vocal performance. But man, oh man, this band has changed a lot over the years, and it is very obvious from the minute you put this album on. And I think it may take the listener aback just a little bit, getting accustomed to this new representation of Skinless. It feels like a Skinless record, but the sound is so completely new. It'll probably leave you asking yourself a lot of questions soon after you listen to it. But regardless of which, this band definitely can still play their music. They can still deliver their stuff, but it just feels brand new. So, overall, I don't think this is the best Skinless album ever. I still think their best material was the first two albums. I did like From Sacrifice to Survival, but I like Trample the Weak, Hurdle the Dead even more. I don't like this new album better than the past two. I really don't know how to feel about it, honestly. I think it's a very solid record, but this may grow on me with time, but I don't know. Just a lot of questions to ask, maybe some that probably won't even be answered, but for whatever it's worth, these guys still know how to play their record, their music, and do songwriting very well. If I had to pick any favorite tracks, I would definitely have to say Serpenticide, Skinless, The Beast Smells Blood, and the closing track, Barbaric Proclivity. Just some really solid songs going on there. I'm going to leave you a link in the description box to Skinless's Bandcamp page where you can stream this album in its entirety, hear it for yourself, and be your own judge as to whether you think it's worthy of being purchased or not. You can buy it digitally, and it is also available in a wide multitude of physical formats. You can buy it on CD and 12-inch vinyl. There are multiple color variations, if I'm not mistaken. So if you want to own this album, there's definitely a lot of ways to get a hold of it. You can definitely get it through your local metal shop or retailer, whatever suits you best. So, again, the album is Only the Ruthless Remain by Skinless. This is released on Relapse Records. Definitely check this out. And for a score, for the time being, I'm going to give this a very strong 7.5 out of 10. This is a solid death metal record, but there's going to be a lot of questions to be pondering about this soon after you listen to it. So, if you're a Skinless fan, you probably will have a lot of questions to wonder about it. And if you happen to listen to this, let me know what you think. Let me know if you liked it or you felt disappointed by it. Let's have a good conversation about it. So I'm going to conclude this review. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for joining my channel. And until next time, Armijo out.